Hello, everybody, and a merry meet to you all, and welcome to tonight's show, which is Willow's Witchy Den, with myself and my beautiful co-host and Sister Drew. So we're both going to be doing the show tonight, guys. Sister Drew, she's going to sit back and put some words and stuff in if she can through the topic that we're talking about today. I've also got my sister Sharon over there that's going to do some of the last part of the reading to give me a little bit of break. Unless she starts coughing, then I will take the book off her and do that myself. But I'm going to be starting with this book. Obviously, I'm training up Sharon, and if I started talking to you in the way that we've been educated and learnt, you guys will probably sit there and be like, huh? So I'm going to read from this book. This lady's really, really good at explaining about the gods, the goddesses, the concepts of how they come along, how they're connected to the wheel of the year, and all of that sort of stuff. So it's going to give you a lot of information, and also I'm going to be giving you the information on certain things that they're going to need. So like the candle colors and the food that you should give them and things like that. So please bear with me with the reading, guys, because as you know, my reading is not always at the greatest, but I will read it the best I can. And I did find that I read quite a lot of it really easy, so this should be quite good. But yeah, we're going to be doing this book, and that is the lady that wrote
It's
it.
a Chamberlain, right? Okay, she's quite good. Her, yeah, I like her. An author.
Yeah, she is. So I like her work, and I'm really glad that Sharon got her as well. So what we're going to be starting with in a minute, guys, is the origins of the goddesses and the gods. Okay, so it's going to be me reading it from the book, because then you can kind of get a concept from somebody else's view. That is my viewpoint and Sister Drew's viewpoint and so on as well. Most of this in here we already know about and how it all corresponds, but I think as people that are educating you, I think it's really good to share sometimes the work of some of the authors that we do support and we find very amazing in the craft. So I'm going to read this one. So it's the deities of Wicca. Okay, so this your deities, your gods, your goddesses, right? And it's their origins of them and how they came about and things like that. So hopefully you're going to enjoy that, and I'm going to start reading it now. So, many thousands of years ago, long before any of the religions in existence today were developed, human beings experienced divinity very differently. There was no need for churches or temples or written texts explaining the existence and the desires of an invisible, faraway, supernatural overseer. Instead, early humans encountered the divine in their immediate surroundings. This is meant by plants, animals, rocks, mountains, and streams were infused with spirit energy, as were words, songs, and stories. Nothing was supernatural, since there was no separation between the perceived physical world and the invisible spirit world. In some cultures, individual objects had their own distinct spirit or soul, while in other cultures, everything was part of some divine source. In describing the origins of religion in human society, historians and anthropologists call the first concept animism and the second one pantheism, though in practice the two worldviews would have had some overlap, as they still do today. No one knows exactly when or how the phenomenon of individual deities first came about. We only know that as human culture evolved, so did our way of perceiving and describing this primordial spiritual energy. The earliest deities we have recorded of tended to be associated with the essential compartments of the physical universe: the sky, the sun, bodies of water, and the most basic of life. needs and functions: safety, shelter, success on a hunt. The Sumerian sky god Anu is one of the earliest known examples, though there are doubt, doubtless older ones which are lost to history. Over time, as the development of agriculture led to permanent settlements and life become more complex, the mythology of these ancient societies began to include deities who were associated with more sophisticated pursuits such as poetry, schools, and crafts, like the Roman goddess Minerva, who governed all three. Not all deities were of equal importance or power. Some lesser deities guarded or inhabited specific natural places, such as the spring or a grove of trees, while other greater deities had the command over weather, battles, the annual harvest, and other crucial factors of life. For the most part, deities were local meanings where for the most part deities were local, meaning they were only known to the people living in a given area. But as some societies began expanding beyond their original territories and settling in new regions like the Romans, the Celts, and the Germanic tribes, they brought their deities with them, spreading their influences far and wide across continents. The Celtic sun god Belenus, for instance, is one of the oldest and most widely known deities in Europe, and even older goddess. Inanna spread through space and time across Mesopo- Mesopotamia and into Greek civilization, where she became Alphaderite. By the time Christianity was developing and gaining influences, there were probably tens of thousands of individual deities throughout the world, if not more. In many places, such as India, Japan, and parts of Africa and Native America, some of these deities continue to be the honored today. In most of the Western world, however, this is not the case. The rise and the spread of the Judeo-Christian God eventually all but stamped out the ancient pagan religion, particularly throughout Europe. And since the people in these regions were logically illiterated, relying on the oral traditions to pass down their beliefs and customs from one generation to the next, there's not much specific information to be found about what is now often referred to as the old religion. Nevertheless, the deities themselves never truly died out, as their myths, epics, and other legends, they kept them immortal, were never completely forgotten, and small pockets of pagan worship, along with other practices that would later come to be called witchcraft, remain active in Europe, even though the worst of the centuries of prosecution. Furthermore, there were always at least a few curious people in each generation who studied the law of the ancient past, keeping the flame of the occult knowledgement alive. and developing new ways to explore and to practice what our pagan ancestors have always understood. Garland Gardner, widely considered to be the founder of modern Wicca, was one of these people. In the early decades of the 20th century, Gardner explored many avenues of religion, mysticism, and occult teachings, befriending a wide variety of influential thinkers along the way. He would he wound up meeting with a group of witches practicing what Gardner believed to be an ancient religion, which had been secretly kept alive throughout the centuries since pre-Christian times. This group, known as the New Forest Coven, interrogated Gardner and presented him with some of the spiritual teachings that he later brought to his own coven. Bricket wood, other occult influences such as Freemasonry and ceremonial magic, along with Gardner's own intuitive innovations, made up the rest of the belief and practice that he and his intimates began to follow. The core element of the new version of the old religion was the worship of a pagan god, usually referred to as the horned god, and a pagan goddess, often referred to as the Great Mother. These were believed to be the ancient deities of the British Isles, who had been buried in obscurity by Christianity, but were now being pulled back into modern awareness through a dogmatic religion that later came to be called Wicca, which was rooted in the Gardner poetry. The male and female beings, both opposite and equal, and present in all nature. Gardner's cosmology also involved a supreme high power which he called the prime mover. But this power was beyond the ability of humans to know or understand, and therefore not of much practical concern. The god and goddess, as they are referred to in their most general form, are more often described as archetypes, the masculine and feminine energies arising from the collective unconscious. Then, as historically known deities from a specific culture or location. However, they can also be thought of as encompassing several individual aspects or lesser deities. Some of these aspects are also archetypes, but many are actually known deities from a variety of ancient cultures, including Egyptian, Greeks, Roman, Celtic, Norse, and Saxon. For example, the horned god could have been based on a number of ancient deities such as the Greek god Pan or the Celtic god Cananos, or his later English counterpart Herne. Likewise, the Great Mother could be said to contain various goddesses such as the Greek Gaia, or the Egyptian Isis. This synchronism, the combining of different deities into one, seems quite logical in Wicca, since it was also a feature of the ancient religion that Wicca draws inspiration from. Over the millennia, many thousands of deities were absorbed into others, including many of the ancient civilizations of Egypt and Greece, as we will see later on. This multifaceted multifaceted nature of deities is no doubt a big factor in the rise and the spread of Wicca, as it allows for various interpretations of their identities. In fact, others in the British occult circles of the time added their own concepts to this newly emerging religious movement. Robert Cochrane, who formed his own coven a few years after Gardner, emphasized the threefold element of the goddess: the maiden, the mother, and the crone, rather than focusing mainly on the mother aspect. And although Cochrane's from the craft ultimately branches away from the gardeners, the triple goddess is now a monastery in most forms of Wicca. Later, Janet and Stuart Farrier, who had been part of the Alexandrian tradition of Wicca, incorporated the Old English mythology of the Oak King and the Holly King into their practice. These were not replacements for the gods and goddesses, but rather additional forms of the masculine deity. Yeah. Brothers whose cyclically battles represent the dark and the light times of the year. As Wicca spreads through Europe, in the Americas, and beyond, more and more variations of Gardner's international version and concepts begun to crop up. For example, some traditions might worship a sun god rather than a horn god, or even the green man, another archetype that comprises various earth gods. There are many different such archetypes or titles found in Wicca, including the earth goddess, the moon goddess, and the father god. These variations can be confusing to people who are new to the Wicca, especially because you're likely to find at least slightly different information in every book you read, depending on the author's particular tradition or lack thereof and experiences. But it's important to understand that all of the different archetypes and individual deities can be thought of as being part of an aspect of the overall goddess and god. There's no exclusivity of competition, as there has so often been with monotheistic religions. Wiccan simply worships their deity in the form that they connect with more on a personal level. Those who belong to covens follow their coven traditions regarding deities. So if the coven worships the goddess as Selene and the god as Apollo, then these are the aspects who are honoured in the coven ritual. In keeping with the tradition of the earliest Wiccan covens, names for the deities are almost always kept secret, known only to intimated members. There is truly an incredible variety of names, titles, and visual renderings of the gods and goddesses among the various traditions, covens, and individual practitioners of Wicca. No way of approaching the worship of these deities is more correct than another. Although many orthodox members of lineage-based traditions such as Gardnerian and Alexandrian Wiccan might argue with that association. But since Wicca, um, as a religion has no official leader or authoritative text, there really isn't anyone who can say that another person's understanding of the god and goddess is somehow wrong or authentic. If this wasn't the case, then Wicca wouldn't be the widespread and ever growing spiritual practice that has become. For all the diversity within the Wicca concept of deities, however, there are certainly some core characteristics of beliefs, myths, and legends and practices regarding the god and the goddess that are commonly found throughout various forms of Wicca. Let's turn now to a closer look at these multifaceted deities and their roles with the Wiccan concept of life, death, rebirth, and the perpetual cycle of nature. So in this part, it was just really explaining to you about how they come into concept into the Wicca, what they're actually seen as, and that they are actually equal in their importance, and no one of them are looked at better than the other. They're both worshipped and loved equally in the Wiccan and most of the pagan practices as well. So here is some concepts about the gods themselves. The god is the masculine half of the gender poetry that is at the heart of the Wiccan, often seen as the horned god, though the sun god is also a very common representation. While these two titles or aspects may be different, they are certainly linked in that they each represent a force that is essential for human survival. The horned god is associated with the wild animals of the earth. He is generally depicted with either a horned headdress of some kind or as having a head and horns of an animal, usually calling to the mind is a stag of the forest or the goat of the mountain. In Gardnerian Wiccan, the horned god was greatly viewed as a male fertility god, but he is also the god of hunt, who in prior centuries was called upon to assist the people in successfully bringing in enough meat to ensure their survival. The horned god is also the god of animals themselves, representing the need for balance in terms of how humans interact with the natural world. In fact, not all horned deities of the ancient past were strictly associated with wild animals. The Egyptians' Menes is an example of a god associated with the bull, which shows on understanding of the need to respect our domesticated animal as well. As noted above, Wiccan might revere the horned god as the Greek god Pan, the Celtic god Cananos, or the English mythology figure Herne, as well as the Welsh Bryn or other ancient horned deities. The sun god's role, of course, is that of providing the light and warmth necessary for plant animals' life to survive and to thrive on earth, as the sun is the source of all life. This is the god most associated with sex and procreation, and this theme is found running throughout the Wicca mythical cycle of the Wheel of the Year. Both the solar holidays and the earth festivals are viewed in the light of where the sun appears to be in respect to the earth's annual journey around it, so that the god is at his full power in the height of summer, and then dies in the late autumn, only to be reborn and to start the cycle all over again. The sun god is associated with light and with fire, and has many individual aspects from various ancient phenomena, including the Celtic god Leith, the Egyptian god Ra, and the Greek god Apollo. Then we've got the goddesses and what they represent. As the feminine half of the Wiccan duo, the goddess is associated both with the earth and with the moon. If the god is viewed as the source of life, it is the goddess who brings life forth and sustains it. As the earth mother, she tends the land, the forests, fields, and crops, as well as livestock and other domesticated animals, through her cycles of flourishing and then dying back in order to ultimately yield new life. She responds to the charge of seasons in her timeless co-creation with the god. As the moon goddess, she rules the night, the tides, and the flow of water around the earth. As such, she is associated with the emotional and intuitive realms as a counterpart to the god's masculine action orientated energy. Aspects often representing the goddess in Wiccan traditions include the Egyptian goddess Isis, the Greek goddess Diana, and the Celtic goddess Brigid, among others. Hello, Scott. Hello, everybody. I hope you're all well. So that was the god and goddess. In a minute, we are going to go on to the triple goddess. Is there anything you want to say, Sister Drew?
No, I'm just enjoying reading it. It's good to hear all the way it all intertwines. And I'm keeping the chat company. So, yeah, I'm just enjoying listening.
I'll get back to it then. So, the next one is the triple goddess, guys. As mentioned above, the reviewing of the triple goddess in many, if not most, forms of Wicca is often attributed to the influence of Robert Cochrane. Cochrane was inspired by British poet and scholar Robert Graves, who wrote The White Goddess, a historical grammar of poetic myth, in which he proposed that a white goddess of birth, love, and death had been worshipped under many names throughout pre-Christian Europe and the ancient Middle East. Although historical evidence of these goddesses is not as prevalent as Graves' suggestions, there are a couple of known examples, such as the Celtic Brigid, who is considered a triple goddess because of her three domains: healing, poetry, and smithcraft. And the goddess Hera, who appears in Greek mythology, is the goddess of girls, women, and widows. The three aspects of the Wiccan triple goddess, the maiden, the mother, and the crone, represent the three phases of a woman's life in terms of physical reproduction, before, during, and after the body's ability to have a child. Their names are also given to the moon in her own cycle of waxing to full and then waning to dark. Some traditions emphasize the moon's connections over the life cycles by worshipping a triple moon goddess, while others keep the relationship with the earth more evenly represented by simply calling her the triple goddess. But whatever she is called, each aspect of archetype contained within this multi-faced deity has her own particular association, characteristics, and representatives, deities from phantoms around the globe. So, the maiden. The maiden represents the youthful phase of a woman's life and the crescent to waxing phase of the moon. As the moon waxes towards fall, this is the phase associated with growth, the season of spring, and with the characteristics of innocence, youth, independence, and self-confidence. The maiden's domains include art, creativity, beauty, intelligence, exploration, discovery, and self-expression. She is associated with dawn, sunrise, fresh, potential, and new life. Deities from ancient phenomenons who often represent maidens include the Greek goddess Artemis and Persephone, the Nordic goddess Freya, and the Celtic goddess Rhiannon. The mother. At the full moon, the goddess transforms from maiden to mother. This is the summer season on earth, when the forest becomes lush with life, the crops flourish, and the newborn animals grow into maturity. The mother is associated with midday and manifestation, as well as adulthood, responsibility, nurturing, and life in all its fullness, as she cares for all of creation. In many Wiccan traditions, this is considered to be the most powerful of the three forms of the goddess, as evidenced by the use of the name Mother Goddess in Gardner's original coven. She is often represented by the Celtic goddess Badeb and Danu, as well as the Greek goddess Demeter and Selene, and the Roman Ceres, among others. Then you've got the crone. As the moon warms and the earth bounty begins to die off, it in representation for the winter seasons, the goddess is finished with her duties of motherhood, and so the crone comes into her power. The crone is the wise elder form of the goddess, who rules over transformation, vision, prophecy, guidance, aging, and endings. She is associated with dusk and the dark of night, death and rebirth, past lives, wisdom, and the furthest reaches of outer space. Although she has been a feared archetype throughout most of human history, her role is critical, since without death there can be no new life. The crone is often represented by ancient goddesses of the underworld, such as Russian Baba, Yaga, the Celtic Morrigan, and Kalich Bear, and the Greek Hecate. So they were the aspects of the gods, the goddesses, obviously the maiden, the mother, and the crone, and their aspects, what they stand for, and things like that. So now we're just going to do the bit on the deities of the wheel of the year. So as we have noted, Wiccan has a fairly diverse set of practices and beliefs which continue to evolve as more and more people are drawn to it. However, there is still a central structure to Wicca in the form of the Wheel of the Year, the 8 Sabbats, and the 13 aspects that together create a framework for the ritual worship, mythology, and the law of nature, and her growing forces, represented in the form of the goddess and god. The yearly cycle, which begins in winter, follows the mythological story of the relationship between the two deities as they create life, nourish it, and then release it back into death in order to start anew. The Sabbats include the solar holidays of the equinox and the solstice, as well as the Earth festivals, which fall on the cross quarters days between the solar points of the wheel. These are considered the days of the power and are associations for rituals, celebrations, and magical work. At the winter solstice, the god is born to the goddess, bringing a spark of hope into the darkest times of the year, that the light of life is returning even as the earth is quietly resting from her labour. By the time of Imbolc, she is recovering as a new life begins to stir beneath the earth, and the young god is gaining strength and power. Next is the spring equinox, when the flowering of the earth gets underway and the goddess steps into her role as the maiden. At Beltane, the god has reached maturity and mates with the goddess to ensure that he will be reborn again at the start of the new year. By the summer solstice, the goddess is at the height of her powers in a mother role, and the god is at his strongest, providing long days of strong light in order for a life on earth to flourish. Their energy begins to wane then at Lammas, when the harvesting begins and the days are once again becoming notably shorter. At the autumn equinox, the god is clearly beginning his journey back to the underworld. The growing season has come to an end, and the goddess is preparing to step into her role as the crone. At Samayan, the harvest is complete, the god dies, and the earth appears to go into mourning as plants' life die back and animals are preparing to hibernate. It is here that the cycle of life and death is completed, which is why many Wiccans feel that this final point of the wheel is the most powerful. Throughout the cycles, the moon is making her own journeys around the earth, and each full moon, or aspect, is a time of revering the goddess. While the Sabbats are somewhat male-focused, determined as they are by the sun position in the sky, the aspects are devoted completely to the feminine deity. Over the course of the year, she may be honoured as many different aspects, which will usually correspond with the season. For example, at the full moon in July, Wiccans may worship her as Demeter, goddess of agriculture, while in October she may be seen as Persephone or another goddess associated with the underworld. Of course, the worship of the goddess and the god isn't restricted to Sabbats and aspects. While the wheel of the year provides covens, informal circles, and solitary practitioners alike with regular opportunities to honour the deities, many Wiccans with deep relationships to the divine masculine and feminine will honour them every day, whether it's with a ritual candle lighting, a brief prayer, or just a simple word of thanks for the day's blessing, but it is the will that reinforces the story of the cycle of life and death, in which we all ultimately participate. Then we just got a little bit here, guys. Let me just go to here. Right. So this one is the deities and the altars, okay? Many who have been following a Wiccan path for a long time will say they experience the presence of the goddess and gods throughout their daily lives, and not just during the time they dedicate to formally worshipping the deities in ritual. However, acknowledging and honouring the gods and goddesses at the altar is nevertheless considered a core practice of Wicca, and is often the starting point for new Wiccans to develop their own personal connection with the deities. Exact protocols for how the goddess and the gods are represented on the altar, as well as how they are addressed, vary as widely as you would expect in a religion as diverse and dramatic as Wiccan. These deities are also generally either kept secret, as is the case with most covens, or held to be deeply personal by solitary practitioners. But while there is no one correct way to approach this aspect of ritual practice, there are a few basic elements of it that most Wiccans hold in common. First, the goddess and the god are usually represented physically on the altar through the use of designed candles. Many traditions assign specific colours to each deity, so that the candle representing the god may be gold, red or yellow, and the goddess candle would be white, silver or black. Alternatively, the candles may be in a specific shape, such as a human form or another symbol representing the deity. Another possibility is to etch representative symbols into the candles with a pin or crystal point. Finally, some Wiccans use jar candles, which they can decorate with images and symbols representative of the gods and the goddesses, either in their general form or as individual aspects like Diana and Kanenos. Placements of the candles, like the placements of everything else on an altar, is purposeful. Some traditions keep the two candles together at the northernmost point of the altar, while others place the goddess candle on the left side and the god candle on the right. Many traditions also recognize the other ritual tools as being represented of either deity, and will place these tools on the altar. For example, the god is associated with the wand and the goddess with the cauldron. In an altar arrangement that devotes one side to each deity, the wand will be the right side and the cauldron will be on the left. Finally, additional images such as artwork depicting the Green Man, the Triple Goddess, or the Pacific deity from ancient phantoms may also be part of the Wiccan altar. Toward the beginning of ritual, often the circle is cast, but before the main focal point of the particular occasion, the goddess and the god are usually verbally acknowledged as their candles are lit. This step may involve a long formal invocation, or it may just be a brief, more controversial welcoming of the deities to the ritual. So just calling them in and welcome them into your spell, your opening circle, things like that. Hello. Oh yes, sis. Nearly finished. Deities of the ritual. If spell work is part of the proceedings, the god and or goddess or one of their specific aspects may be asked directly for assistance, depending on the nature of the work. The deities are thanked for their presence at the close of the ritual, and the candles may be left to burn for a while longer or generally extinguished depending on either the association itself or the tradition before followed. Now, if I've got a big candle and I've done a ritual and I've done an opening, I will normally leave my candle going for maybe half an hour, 40 minutes, and or longer if I get the feeling to. Once I feel that it's been completed and I feel that energy has been completed, I will normally use a candle stub out. Do not blow it out, because it means you blow out any intention and work that you've put into your practice. So you don't want to be blowing it out, guys. So just get like a little candle stubber, or if you've got a little object that's not going to smash when you do it but will put the candle out, you can do that. If you do use the small tea light candles, which only last an hour, couple of hours, I normally let them just go completely out. I let them just do their thing. The same with the small ritual candles that you use that are about this size and they're long. I will normally let that burn all the way down until it gets to about there. You don't want to get them stuck in your candle holders, but yeah, your big ones you don't have to though. I'd leave it on for about 30-40 minutes, and once you start to feel that energy has done what it's meant to be doing, you can turn it off. For some people it takes a bit longer, sometimes it doesn't. It really depends on how quickly the spell's supposed to go. You'll normally get that feeling and that knowing that it's been completed. Okay, so just doing that with some rituals as well, it takes more than just one day for a course as well. There may be a ritual that you do that's 3 or 4 days long, so you would normally use your bigger pillar candles, your big candles, or you'd use the longer candles, which would be able to do those couple of days, or you would have to put an individual candle out each day if it's a tea light candle. So you know, it's all different, and it's why we say it's really important for you to study and to educate, guys, because it's the only way to truly know what you're doing. So let me just do this bit to you. So representing the god and the goddess, a table of the correspondences. If you're just starting out on your journey of connecting with the god and goddess in your own ritual practice, here are some common symbolic associations you might work with to represent them on your altar. The god and the goddess, in their most generalized forms, are represented by traditional Wiccan tools. There are more specific aspects that may be represented with particular crystals, herbs, flowers, food, and drink may be offered to your chosen deity, as well as a few suggestions are made here. Remember, of course, that traditions vary widely, and that ultimately what feels right to you is what matters the most. So be creative and enjoy the process of discovery, which is what we always tell you. So then you've got your deity. So for the god, these are things that you can use on your altar. So altar tools that you can use to represent the god: a censer, a wand, an anthem, or a boileen. The candles for the gods is gold, red, orange, yellow, or green. Images and symbols: the crescent moon on top of the circle. And the offerings is bread, basil, clover, pine needles, and fruit. This is for the gods. For the horned gods, your altar tools are bloodstone, green tourmaline, or tiger's eye. Candle colours are green or gold. Images and symbols are horns, spears, swords, and arrows. For offerings, cheese, pine cones, or nettles. For the sun god, sunstone for altar tools to represent him. Sunstone, citrine, and carmelian. Candle colours, red, orange, and yellow. Images of symbols, the sun, flames. And the offerings would be sunflower seeds and petals of any type. So that would be for the gods. Then going over to the other side, you've got your goddesses. So the deity, the goddess. Altar tools that can represent her is a cup, a pentacle, bell, and a cauldron. Candle colours, black, white, silver, and green. Images and symbols, circle flanked by 2 crescent moons. Offerings, white or purple flowers, chamomile, hibiscus, or olive oil. For the maiden, clear quartz can represent her, rose quartz can represent her, and so can amethyst. Candle colours would be white and pink. Images, the waxing moon, owl, or deer. And the flower offerings would be pink flowers or white wine. For the mother, for the tools to represent her, you've got bloodstone, rose quartz, or garnet. Her candle is red. Her images of symbolism is full moon or cauldron, and the offerings is rose, milk, or honey. For the crone, the altar tools that can represent her is jet, onyx, or obsidian. The candle is black. Images and symbols, the waning moon, a lantern, or a key, and the offerings would be red wine and apples. So that was my part that I wanted to do with you guys. I don't know if Sister is awake. It may be that I have to do it because I think she's fallen asleep.
She's sleeping. Oh dear.
So it's going to be me that carries it on. So on this part, I'm going to be talking to you about the Roman gods and goddesses, some Roman gods and goddesses, and some Celtic gods and goddesses. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do all of them because there is so much here, but I'm going to try my best. We've only been going on for 52 minutes, so we'll see how well we go. I hope you're finding it interesting so far, guys.
Get a little break, get a drink for 5 minutes if you want before you start.
Yeah, my throat is hurting a little bit.
Welcome in, Amora. Welcome in, everybody. Nice to see you all
Hello,
here.
Amora. Hello, Drew, Brother Scott, and all of my beautiful angels in the room. I know that there's a few. Rainwater, hello. Kim, my sister, hello. Salam, hello, dear. How are you? Obviously, our Mora sisters in here. And to all of our other sisters like Mystical and Kerry and all of those. Lots of love to you as well if you're watching back. Our lovely Evie.
She's getting ready for work.
Yes.
She said an interesting thing. Well, in the chat, she's in Australia, guys, so they are the opposite to us. So she finds it hard to celebrate the seasons the same as us because, as you know, they're in the, well, I don't know what you call it, but when it's our winter, it's their summer, and when it's their summer, it's our winter. So it must be awkward trying to celebrate the seasons at the same time as your brothers and sisters across the world. So I dare say if you're in Australia or somewhere like that, then you have to just stick to the weather in your own.
I don't think that you have to follow our way. We're all in different parts of the world, so we're all going to have different times that we do it. So when your winter, your summer, your autumn falls, you do what rituals we do in the winter and the summer in your months in your country. Don't try to follow the English one because that's not where you are. You're not in England, you're in America
All your
and
own.
Scotland.
Yeah.
Why am I saying Scotland? America and Australia and all of that. You know what I mean? So just go with your seasons, okay? You know what your summer, spring and that is, and you can take the
Just
advice we
depends
give you
here.
and use the advice we give you and do it on your seasons.
Yeah.
It will still do the same thing.
The only thing it'll do is when we're doing our seasons, it'll be a little bit awkward watching us when it's the opposite to yours, but it's the way it is, isn't it? It's just the way
Well,
it is.
it is, but they can still take like the advice and take all of the
Exactly.
teachings and the things they can use. They would just use it in their seasons, not in our seasons, as we would use ours in ours and not in theirs. You know what I mean? Obviously, for
Yeah.
me, it's going to be quite confusing coming from England and going to Texas, which is completely different. So the seasons are going to be different, but
Yeah.
you know,
It's interesting though. It's what makes the world
it
turn.
is, yeah. And it's, you know, just do it how your seasons are, guys. What you've got to remember is your gods, your goddesses are aware of all of the changes in our world and who gets summer at what time and who gets winter at what time. And it represents the same thing to all of us, just at different times.
We just can't celebrate together, that's all.
Yeah.
If you're another
But
side of
we
the
can
world.
help with your normal spells. Like if we come to you with any problems, things like that, there's no problem. But when you're doing your seasonal stuff, yeah, just stick to your season, guys. Like I'll be
It's a
back on in a minute, and we'll
Yep.
start doing this other bit.
Thank you for sharing out, Amora.
Thank you, sis. Yeah, it's
Yes, it's
an
interesting.
interesting book.
See, sometimes they have the perception that a lot of the goddesses are one goddess or maybe two or three goddesses. It's just that they've got archetypes. So, such as some people say Persephone, Diana, Kari are all the one goddess under Hecate, for example.
Yeah,
Just
that's what it
Hecate.
was explaining in it. But they're all individual, guys.
But they're all
Like
individual, I feel.
they are, yeah.
Especially the main ones like Hecate, Diana, and things. They're all strong goddesses for their own self, you know.
They are, yeah.
They're all strong goddesses. And remember, you can work with many of them. You don't. You can also work with them for specific reasons. You don't have to work with just the one. You can call
Yeah.
upon them for whatever reason you want. Just study what each of them does. You know?
I do it. I've got quite a few different gods and goddesses I work with because I just can't fit. I don't feel that I can just worship one god and one goddess and that's going to do everything. I just feel energy and difference in all of them. They've all got their characteristics and things they're good for. You know what I mean? So use them that way. Don't see them all as being one or being the same. It's up to you if you do, but you know, they're not the same. They're individual and they've got their own personalities and their own characteristics. We would know that by working with them. I can tell you, Kate is completely different to Freya, and Freya is completely different to Bridget. Do you know what I mean? Even though they're all very close knitted as family wise, they're very different. Very different.
Hold the book up, sis, so they can see what one it is. Kerry was asking what one it was. Wicca Magical Deities by Lisa Chamberlain. Okay.
There's another one she got as well. I'll show you as well. It's really good. Hang on. This one, which was another one, said about the gods and goddesses of the Celtic realms. Try this one out, guys.
Oh, that one will be interesting. Dave Stone. Right, that'll be interesting. That actually is going to go a little bit more into their history as well.
I'm getting both of these books just for when we're doing education. I think it'd be really good because we could maybe take pictures of the pages and send them over to the people so they can read it up.
And most people will buy the book if they know that you're doing a teaching on it. They'll buy it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If we get the books, it's not because we don't know what we're doing, guys. If we've got the books here as well, when we're doing education with you guys, we could go to page 72 or 75, and it's about this, and we can go through what you're talking about then. You know what I mean? because it's quite
Yeah.
hard when there's a lot of you together.
Yeah.
So the next bit, so we're going to talk to you about the Romans a little bit. Okay, are you going to do this, sis? Right, okay, sister's woke up, so Sharon's lovely voice is going to come on screen. So we're starting now, sis. So listen to what she's saying.
The ancient people, now known as the Romans, originally belonged to an Italic tribe called the Latins, who established several settlements along the central western coast of the Italian peninsula. The city of Rome grew from a small village into teeming metropolis over the span of a few centuries, and it developed an increasingly civilized and complex culture, in no small part thanks to its neighbours, particularly the Etruscans to the north and the Greeks to the south. But the Romans were clearly not content to just keep to their original territory, and over the centuries they extended the borders of their empire to include places as far away as southern Scotland, northern Africa and Turkey. They spread their culture and religion throughout the lands they occupied, and when it came to Greece, which predated Rome by about 1,000 years, they really were no match. With a much richer culture, Greece was widely influenced in the Mediterranean region, and so it made more sense to adopt many of their myths, ideas, and even deities. However, they used their own names for the deities, turning Artemis into Diana, for example, Dionysus into Bacchus, and Aphrodite into Venus. They also changed details of the stories to suit their own culture and worldview, because for all similarities they may seem to have, the Romans were not much like the Greeks at all. Greek culture was sophisticated, filled with literature, art, philosophy, and celebration of ideas. The Greeks enjoyed the finer things in life and valued individualism. Revering the heroic deeds and culture contributions of great soldiers, athletes, and thinkers. The Romans, by contrast, were strict and stern, emphasizing a sense of duty and obedience, working hard for the greater good of society and downplaying individual desires. Roman culture was largely arrogant and concerned with the acquisition of more land, so the bravery of warriors was an ideal standard to live up to, as they valued actions over ideas, but they didn't celebrate individual soldiers so much as they prized the accomplishments of Romans as a people. For the Greeks, the motivation to accomplish great things was to recognize and remembered by their society. For the Romans, it was the reward in the afterlife that mattered. They believed that they could be elevated to godlike status if they led exemplary lives of good and heroic deeds. These differences can be seen in Roman mythology, where the gods and goddesses are far more practical and functional than their emotionally unpredictable Greek counterparts. They were also more subdued and composed than the Greek deities, and conformed more to the militaristic, patriarchal framework of Roman society. For example, Mars, the most prominent god of war, represented the order and stability achieved by military victory, whereas Ares, his Greek equivalent, was more associated with chaos and destabilization. And the Greek warrior goddess Athena, once she became Minerva, was given the more tame association of arts, sport, and wise strategy, reflecting the Roman ideal of war as a strictly masculine activity.
Yeah, Minerva. Yeah.
The myths themselves focus more on the founding of Rome and its politics and wars rather than on the personalities of its deities. Perhaps this comparative lack of flair is why Greek mythology is so much more well known and why the Romans themselves were so keen to adopt it. Whatever the case, or less, is known about Roman deities and myths, the periods before Greek influence took root then after.
I'll take it over. Right, so I'm here. Roman religion and magic. The Roman religion is keeping with the culture, with its culture, was one of the serious devotions to its native deities. And unlike ancient Greece, where government and religion were separate realms, Roman religion was very much intertwined with politics. In fact, politicians often rose to power by becoming priests. Government decisions, particularly those related to war, were never undertaken without consulting the appropriate deities first. This was done through various methods of divination, including dreams, interpretation, observing animal behavior, in particular the flight pattern of birds, and scrying from the entrails of animal sacrifices. Deities were honored at all public events, and the calendar year was full of festivals devoted to specific gods and goddesses. Furthermore, every type of vocation had a patron deity, and every household had its own spirit and ancestor, who were honored with daily rituals. Magic was also widely practiced in Rome, even though it was officially frowned upon by the government, and many aspects were made to prevent its use, including laws against even passing magical knowledge. Despite the threat of prosecution, however, magic was a thriving business, with plenty of professional magicians available to meet the needs of the average citizen. People sought magical interventions in many areas of life, including love and luck, gambling, healing, and protection from evil spirit. However, there was no harm to none. Philosophy in Rome, magic, people also paid magicians to work curses against their enemies. These workings usually involved amulets, sympathetic cord magic, and or the inspiration of spells onto lead tables, which tend to be addressed to specific deities and were often buried in graveyards. Ultimately, the vast reach of the Roman Empire at the height of its power, how much to do with the stamping out of pagan practices throughout Europe. It was the Emperor Constantine who first converted to Christianity, paving the way for it to become the official religion of the empire by the year 400 AD. But as we have already seen, the pagan deities of the ancient world never truly and completely died out, as they have inhabited the imaginations of countless writers, artists, and occult scholars for centuries. Today, many reconstructions pagan groups are even making efforts to revive religious practices of ancient Greece and Rome among the pre-Christian civilization. And of course, many Wiccans work with these two phantoms. Next, we'll meet a handful of the most widely worshipped deities. These include the Greek earth goddess Gaia, the nature god Pan, and the mysterious Hecate, queen of witches, as well as the Roman love goddess Venus, Diana, goddess of the hunt, and Bacchus, god of wine and reality. Revelry. Revivery. These are, of course, just a few brief instructions, so don't hesitate to explore these and other deities from the Greek and Roman phantoms. So your first one is Pan. Of all the widely known Greek gods and goddesses, Pan has had perhaps the most influence on Wiccan concepts of the male deity. He is an ancient horned god, half man and half goat, who is associated with fertility and the forest. But he is also a god of mischief and mayhem, representing the unpredictability of both human nature and the wild. Pan lived on the outskirts of the civilized world of the Greek deities, performing the freedom of the wilderness, but he still enjoyed a good party, and was often in lustful pursuit of female company. He is also associated with music. In fact, he gave the pan flute its name, and was often referred to as the god heard but not seen, as those who might be looking in on a celebration from the edges of his wild kingdom, playing music for the benefit of the peoples, but choosing to stay hidden. Greek mythology has conflicted stories about Pan's origins, but he is believed to be older than the more famous Olympian deities. However, most of what is known about Pan comes from fighters who would find themselves dancing wildly and nearly uncontrollably once Pan descended upon the festives with his music. Worship of Pan was generally a boisterous all-night outdoor affair with fine food, drink, and sex, with the distinct sound of Pan's pipes playing in the background. Revealers after experienced visions of the god during these rituals. Wiccans and other pagans revere Pan for his association with both wild goats and domesticated flocks, shepherds, hunters, nature spirits, artistic music, and fertility. Because of his last connection, He is often invoked at Beltane. As a second god, it's important to note that Pan is all about lust rather than committed love and partnership. Therefore, don't ap- appeal to him for help in attracting a lasting relationship. Pan is much more an embodiment of the untamed passion that all humans are capable of letting loose, which explains why he's the inspiration for renditions of the Devil card in many tarot decks, including the classic Ride, Wait, Wait, Wait. Some Wiccans ask Pan for help in increasing their masculine skills. To honour Pan, it's traditional to approach him by making noise of some kind, most commonly by chopping and clapping and singing, or chanting, or playing musical instruments. It is said that Pan doesn't like to be startled, and so it's best to warn him that you're about to address him. Offerings of wine are appropriate, as are honey cakes for the nymphs or nature spirits that often accompany him. On your altar, you can include images of wild goats and other forest creatures, or even a plain flute. Of course, since Pan is the god of the wild, you may find it more appropriate to commune with him outdoors, perhaps in a wooded area. Gaia. Over the past few decades, the popularity of the earth goddess Gaia has spread widely throughout the pagan world. For Wiccans, she is a phenomenal archetype of the mother goddess, giving birth and to giving birth to and nurturing all of creation. Her name comes from the Greek word for land, which is Ge, and the root of the English word geology, geology and even geometry, which in, internally refers to the measurement of land. For many in the environmental movement, Gaia has come to symbolize the planet Earth itself, and she is often represented in contemporary art as a pregnant woman with the globe painted onto her protruding belly. Ancient Greek artists portrayed her as a voluptuous woman stretched out on the earth or rising up out of it. Gaia is believed to be the Greek version of an older Neolithic era mother goddess. In the Greek cosmology, Gaia was born of chaos, the primordial force that preceded creation. In turn, Gaia brought forth the sky, the sea, and the mountains. She mated with Uranus, the sky god, and gave birth to the Titans, the first divine rulers of the world. She also gave birth to many creatures and sea deities, and her grandchildren become the most well-known gods and goddesses of the Phantom, the Olympians. Gaia was also a goddess of prophecy, and one magical story has her predicting the overthrow of her son, Caranos, by one of his own children, which then comes to pass despite Charon's effort to prevent it. There is plenty of evidence to suggest that the famous ancient shrine in Greece, known as the Oracle at Delphi, Delphi, where priestesses would speak prophecies that comes from the gods Apollo, was originally dedicated to Gaia. The oracular power of the site was believed to be directly connected to her earth energy. For this reason, some Wiccans call Gaia on Gaia to assist in various forms of divinization. She is also invoked for magic involving transformation of all kinds and bringing creative objects to fruition, along with abundance and prosperity. Fertility is another key association, along with any work related to the turning of the seasons, healing through herbs and other natural remedies, and perhaps most critically in this modern age, healing the environment perhaps more than any other deity. Gaia teaches the necessity of balance as well as gratitude. For this reason, she is often worshipped as at autumn Sabbaths, but any point along the wheel of the year is appropriate for honouring the earth. An altar devoted to Gaia might have any kind of stones or crystals, as well as soil, plants, or images of trees and other greenery. Suitable offerings including harvested fruits, vegetables, and grains. However, it's also an excellent idea to be outdoors, either sitting or standing with bare feet on the ground. Ooh, nearly there, guys. One magical tradition involving Gaia is to gather a few pinches of soil from the earth and carry them with you in a cloth, sachet, or a sealed container. This is especially useful when you're struggling to keep a promise or a resolution, either to yourself or someone else. When you feel tempted to stray, release a little of the soil back to the earth to keep you grounded and connected to your higher self. It's okay. So the next one is Hecate. Now, Hecate is one of my favourites and she is really, really cool. So believed to have originated outside of Greece, possibly Egypt or Southwest Asia, before being assimilated into the Greek culture. Hecate was identically a mother goddess associated with childbirth and the female reproductive process. Her name has been given several possible meanings. Hecate is said to be the feminine form of Hecatus, which was a rarely used name for Apollo. It is also said to mean most shining one, which would correlate with portrayals of her wearing a starry headdress and holding a torch. Whether she later became associated with witchcraft, sorcery, ghosts, and the spirit world. Some argue that this was due to the advent of male dominant societies becoming the norm. With the fear of the women's power, we will probably never know, but we do have an additional meaning for Hecate's name, which is she who works her will. As such, she is a beloved patron goddess of many Wiccans and other magical practicing pagans. In Greek mythology, Hecate tends to be seen as a powerful outsider. She is adopted by the Olympians but never lives among them. And yet, in the earlier myths, Zeus grants her domain over the earth, the seas, and even the heavens, and she appears to be his equal. Later myths show her as Zeus's daughter and associated her with the underworld. In one story, she is sent there to rescue Persephone, who has been captured by Hades. Hades is reluctant to give Persephone up, so an argument is made to let her spend half of the year with the living and the other half in the underworld with the dead. Hecate become Persephone's counterpart as she moves between the worlds. As time went on, Hecate became increasingly depicted as a frightening hag associated with the waning moon and restless spirits, ultimately becoming known as the goddess of the dead. Crossroads were traditionally associated with Hecate, most likely because of the crossroads that the newly dead would encounter in the underworld. She could manifest as a black dog, considered a guardian symbol of both houses of the living and of the entrance of the realm of Hades. She is often portrayed holding a snake, another symbol of the dead, and wearing a belt with the keys of the spirit world. She may be accompanied by a three-headed dog or have the triple head of a dog, snake, and lion. Compared to the earlier representations of her, which the torch and headdress of stars, it's clear that her darker aspect became more prominent as time went on. Wiccans revive Hecate's title of Queen of the Witches, and many see her as an example of the triple goddess. Even though she doesn't quite fit the description in the classic scene, she is mostly a crone goddess due to her association with magic and death, and it's called upon for help with transformation during the dark time of the year. Beginning at Samain, some traditions worship Hecate and the Celtic goddess Brigid as alternative deities of darkness and light, with Hecate ruling over the waning half of the year and Brigid ruling the waxing half. Something like a feminine version of the Oak King and the Holly King. To honour Hecate, leave her offerings of raw egg, cheese, or garlic at a crossroads, or decorate your altar with images of snakes, black dogs, owls, and ravens. So that was Hecate. She's a really amazing goddess, and she's not as dark as people make out. Yes, she has got another side to her and that, guys, but she is really good at helping you to understand like life after death and all those sort of things, and she's really good to work with. She's really good to get things moving along as well. She gets right to the point. She really helps you to know who you are and to know your paths as well. She's a really strong goddess, very wise. She's full of a lot of wisdom, definitely. Then you've got Venus. Unlike many Roman deities who were Greek in origin and simply adopted by the Romans, Venus was native to Rome and was actually considered to be the divine mother goddess in the mythology of the foundation of the Roman people. In keeping with the functional nature of the Phantom, she was associated with gardens and vegetation, in general including blossoms, the delight spring promise of new life to come. In this spirit, she was also a goddess of the seasonal love, which is reflected in her name. Venus is a Latin word relating to seductive beauty, charm, and mating. As the Roman and Greek civilization began to merge, Venus looked on the characteristics and mythology of Aphrodite, who was also a goddess of love and beauty. And although she has other domains as well, including prosperity and victory in war, she has remained throughout time as a symbol of the undeniable power of the feminine. In keeping with her multiple roles, there were several forms of aspects Venus could take in Roman mythology. As the divine ancestor of the Roman people, her mother goddess aspect was known as Venus Gentrix, while the warrior goddess was Venus Victrix. As a goddess of fortune, she was Venus Felix, and in a seeming contradiction, she was also associated with the virtue of feminine chastity, known as Venus Verdicordia. That's a long name. This last role is likely a holdover from the pre-Aphrodite identity, since she later became known as the seductress, who took many lovers, including the native Roman god of fire, Vulcan, and Mars, the god of war. Mars, of course, is regarded even today as the male counterpart of Venus. Quintessential female energy. In visual representations, Venus is also almost always depicted as a beautiful and voluptuous young woman, and is symbolized by roses, doves, trees, pine cones, and wild berries. For Wicca, Venus is predominantly associated with the domain of romantic love, though many seek her assistance in matters of friendship and family, as well as gardening and prosperity. She is typically honored during one or more of the spring Sabbats in bulk, the vernal equinox, and Beltane, in keeping with her roles as goddess of new growth and of sexual passion. Call on Venus for all deities related to love and romance. If you're looking for a new relationship, place bay leaves under your pillow to encourage prothic love dreams. If you're already romantically involved, bay leaf tea can re-energize the passion in your relationship. If you need an extra boost of feminine energy to balance out strong masculine forces in your life, gather several flowers and pine cones, the traditional symbols of Venus. and place them around your environment where you will see them constantly. To commune with her in nature, be on the outlook for large stones situated next to a tall tree. Venus is said to always be present in these places. To honour Venus, at your altar use pine cones, spring blossoms, and or images of her from ancient Greco-Roman art. Offerings can include slices of exotic fruits like pineapples, mangoes, bay leaves, and roses. Bacchus. Bacchus, the god most known for his association with wine, was not native to the Roman but wholly imported from the Greeks, while he was somewhat identified with the older Latin god Liber, also associated with wine and rivalry. The mythology surrounding Bacchus seems to be entirely Greek in origin, with Romans and some deities changed to feel better in Roman culture. In Greece, he was Dionysos, and although he has plenty of Wiccan followers under his name, he is also widely known in his Roman form throughout Wiccan and other pagan communities. This may be due to the Bacchus' prominence in the Roman phantom once he was brought in. He was considered one of their council of gods, known as the considered one of their council of gods, known as the consents. However, his role as the god of wine, barely hereditary and good cheer, may also have something to do with it. In some ways, Bacchus could almost be linked to the Greek Pan, in that he brought a high degree of festivity to ancient worship. In a culture as serious as order driven as ancient Rome, Bacchus would have offered a delightful and welcoming contrast. His devotees tend to get widely drunk and rebellious to the extent that the government of Rome eventually banned his festivities. In fact, to this day, the word Bacchunella is used to refer to the festive, drunken, raucous parties. There is also a tie-in with sexual excess, and some people equate Bacchus with orgies. Through this is likely misrepresenting history, or at least stretching the truth. The Latin word orgia actually refers to secret rites attended only by women, and such rituals did exist to honour Bacchus. Of the festivals attended by both sexes, much was written about indecent sexual behaviour, but these reports were conservative. Roman statements who didn't care for this wild Greek element in the Roman culture, and historians believe they are aggravated or even completely made up. Nevertheless, the association with the uninhabited sexual stuck. In mythology, Bacchus is actually something of a romantic, recurring the goddess Arena, the Roman name for the Greek Adrene, from the sea and marrying her. Their relationship was among the most romantic of the ancient phantoms, and he remained faithful to her until her death. Bacchus is also a shapeshifter, able to transform into a lion or a bull when need be, and it is sometimes portrayed in a chariot being pulled by lions. He was credited with the discovery of grapes and their wine, making potential and sacrifices to himself, always involving goats and some swines. Since both animals were destructive to grapes and could potentially ruin the harvest, Wiccans who work with Bacchus often honour him at Beltane in association with sex and general rivalry, but many also incorporate him into Sabbats at the end of the summer to coincide with the grape harvest. Spiritually, Bacchus represents the need to let loose on associate occasions, and he may be called upon to help you release construction in any area of life or your personality, just as a wine can help people say and do things they would be too inhabited to otherwise. The energy of Bacchus can help break up stagnant, restrictive energy. To honour him at your altar, wine and grapes are the obvious choices for both offerings and imagery. How many more have I got? I think I'm just going to do this last one, guys, because my throat is killing me. And then I'll go through the illustrations quickly. And then we'll do the Celtic ones. I'll get Sis to bring it over again and we'll do the Celtic one another time. If that's all right, Sis?
Mm-hmm.
So the next one is Diana. Like Venus, Diana was also a native Roman deity who only later become associated with a Greek equivalent, the goddess Artemis. Intentionally a hunting goddess associated with the forest and wild animals, Diana eventually become closely associated with the moon. Her name has been translated as heavenly or divine due to its roots in an ancient Indo-European word for sky. Diana is widely revered in several Wiccans and other pagan traditions, particularly those who focus prominently on exclusively on the divine feminine. In fact, she's the deity from whom Diamic Wicca takes its name. Even so, Diana is also honoured and worked with by Wiccans who follow the tradition concept of gender polarity. As goddess of the hunt, Diana was most famously worshipped in a secret oak grove near Lake Nemi, which was in the countryside outside Rome, surrounded by woodlands. Her festival was called Nimarella and was sacred to women who understood elaborate cleansings and beautifying rituals in order to prepare to visit her temple. In Roman mythology, Diana was regarded as a vaginal goddess. What? Yeah, vaginal goddess who vowed never to marry, and her attitude towards males can be seen in one story in particular. Bathing in a stream while at a hunt, Diana is spotted by a young man named Actaeon. Actaeon. He feels complied to approach her and praise her for her beauty. In response, Diana turns him into a stag, after which he is attacked by his own hunting dogs. This fierce independence from male energy is likely the inspiration for those Wiccan and pagans who practice Dianic forms of worship. As a lunar deity, Diana became associated with women and childbirth, and in old Italian religions of Stregeria, she was the queen of the witches, meaning that she ruled over the wise women and healers of the land. These two associations have led many Wiccans to see her as an ultimate triple goddess. She is the maiden in her huntress role, the mother in her role of protector of women in childbirth, and the crone in her role as leader of the wise woman. In ancient Roman art, she is usually depicted as a young, beautiful hunter with her bow and arrow, often surrounded by wild animals. It's interesting to note that she was both hunter and friend to animal, with a reputation for being able to talk and to influence their behavior. In magic, Diana is often called upon for association in matters for fertility, protection, and abundance. If you want to honor her at your altar, include images symbolic to either or both of her major roles: bow and arrows, forest animals and vegetation, and moon and water symbols. She can also be communed with in an oak grove or in other quiet wooded places. Try following an ancient Roman tradition by writing your petition to Diana on a strip of cloth or ribbon and tie it to a tree branch. You can leave offerings to her, such as blueberries, eggs, or white wine in a forest or at a crossroad. Finally, the full moon is an excellent time to approach Diana, particularly in the summer and the autumn months. So that was Diana. So this is obviously your Roman ones, guys. So now let me just say to you quickly. So Pan, his candle colours are purple, brown and green. Images of symbolism is goat, pan pipes, caves, mountains or forests. His offerings can be wine, honey and cakes, and type of magic is lust, passion and music. Gaia is green, blue and brown candles. Their images and symbols are serpents, bees, harvest crops, green celandite, amber and honeysuckle. Her favourite offerings is honey, barley, sage or rose incense. And types of magic you can use her for is business, abundance, childbirth, divinization and marriage. PK is black or orange candle. Her symbols and images are snakes, black dogs or ravens. Her offerings are eggs, cheese or garlic. And her types of magic is justice, knowledge, magical power, protection, and physic abilities. Venus, she is a pink or a white candle. Her images and symbolisms are spring, flowers, pine cones. Pine cones. Offerings, exotic fruit, bay leaves or roses, and a type of magic is love, lust, friendship, and family. Bacchus, E is a red or purple candle. His images or symbolisms are a chalice, a lion, or a bull. His offerings can be wine or grapes, and his type of magic is fertility and celebration. Diana, she is either a silver or white candle. Images and symbols are bow and arrow, forest animals, and vegetation. Her offerings are blueberries, eggs, and white wine. And her magic is courage, liberation, magical powers, success, and wisdom. Let me just see if that's all of it or if there's more. And that's it. So that was your Roman one. So the next time that I'm on with this, guys, we will do the Celtic one, which I think is going to be really cool as well. But I've done you the Roman ones because a lot of the gods and goddesses that are used in our faith today are representations of either Celtic or Roman. A lot of people wouldn't realise that some of them are actually Roman associated, but they are. So they were the gods and goddesses of that time. Obviously, I spoke to you about the crone and the maiden and the mother and all of those sort of representations, how the god and goddess became their energy and who they are as well. So I do hope that it's gave you some influence and a little bit more understanding about how a god and goddess can be, how they can be formed and be different. You know, all individual energy, but they're all equally made in a very special way to be a representation of something. So I do hope that you did find that book really, really cool. And
it was interesting
that it is your magic. It is your magic, guys, yeah. And you don't have to follow everything that we educate. Just take bits from it and go away, educate, study, and learn yourself. I've only gave you bits of what's in this book. There is so much information. You do a lot of research. There's many gods and goddess books and things online and people that work with them. So you can learn a lot more. But that book is to give you the main aspects on how to start working with her or him and what they like and how they come to be who they are and what they're, connected to. It even gave you representations of different names that they've been and what they were associated to be in the past, and now they've evolved to become something even more. So a very interesting book. A very interesting book, that one.
Yep, sure is. Gives you a little bit of aspect on what the goddesses are. The gods, of course. Can't forget them.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. And that's what I wanted to do. And sometimes it's just good to bring out authors and people that that are really good and that are very knowledgeable, just like yourselves. And I very much do believe in a lot of the ways that they speak in that book and the deities that they work with. Obviously, I don't work with all of them deities, but there are a couple there that I do work with, and they're absolutely amazing. And I just wanted you to learn that. But like I said, next time Sister is over, hopefully this week coming, next Monday, I'm going to try to get this lady up to do this interview. This is what I'm trying to get to happen. So I'm going to try and get that for next Monday. And then the next time that Sister is over again, she'll bring her books and I'll do the Celtic side. So it'll be a bit like what I've just done tonight, but it'll be talking about the Celtic side and all of the Celtic gods and goddesses, which are pretty big to me and pretty big to Sister Drew and a lot of the other ladies in our colony. We all do believe in a lot of the Celtic gods and goddesses, so that bit's going to be really exciting too. And maybe I will let you all have a few little aspects out of her other book that I did put up to the camera to show you. I did show them the other book as well. So yeah,
interesting stuff.
And it's been exactly nearly 2 hours. So I am going to be getting off here very shortly, guys, because it's been a long week. It's been non-stop. And I want to be able to just go and chill. And I know that Sis has been working as well. And she's, you know, she's not feeling very well as well. She's not been feeling good. So we will be getting off soon. But we do appreciate you all coming in, my angels, and we do love you. And we hope that you did enjoy that different stream today. I thought it'd be good to just twist it up a little bit and make it a bit different.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting, guys. If I feel up to it, guys, my show will be on tomorrow night, the usual time, 11 o'clock. Oh, it's cold. 1 minute I'm roasting, the next minute I'm freezing. Give love to Dash.
Yeah, he's literally slaying on the sofa over here at the minute with Sharon.
Yeah.
So right, guys, we're going to play the intro out and we're going to say a good night to you and lots of love and blessings, and may you all be safe and keep well, and merry parting from us both. And tune in next Monday, the next show.
Blessings.
And maybe Sister's show tomorrow if she's feeling okay.
I probably will do it, guys. I probably will. See you tomorrow.
I'll be there with you if you do, Sis, anyway. So
I will, probably.
So love you, angels. We'll see you all very, very soon. Obviously, this outro is going to play. Then that 20-second one's going to come up after it, but that'll give you like 40 seconds to get off.
Bye, everybody.
So lots of love. Night, night. Bless you.